You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, I am delighted to welcome Mike Koop. Mike has been in many bands over the years, such as the Bonaduces, The Kicker, and more. This interview with Mike talks about the history of the band Dud, which features Mike on guitar and vocals, John Samson Fellows on bass and backing vocals, and James Ash on drums. If you want to hear the story of mixing and mastering of the Dud EP May Not Go, Unrealized recordings from 1996, please consider also going back one episode and listening to my conversation with the mixing and mastering engineer Paul Hodgert. Interestingly, Mike played the Unscripted Moments book release party in Winnipeg in October of 2025, and that's kind of how this entire saga began. Without further delay, please enjoy my conversation about Dud with Mike Koop. Mike Koop, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda and temporarily about the band Dud. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Greg. It is truly an honor to be asked to be part of this. Thank you very, very much.
Well, it is a delight to have you, Mike. I'm just wondering if you can just spend a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners out there, because we have listeners all over the world, and they may not know who you are or what you do. So go ahead and fill them in a little bit.
All right. Well, I'm the third son of an evangelical Mennonite pastor who was also a professor of Old Testament. And my mom was a secretary, a very brilliant woman, really good at writing. I got caught by the music bug in my teens. Before that, I'd been a car and boat kid. And when I got into music, I got into it whole hog in kind of a crazy way. For a little bit of background, I currently own about 2,500 CDs because I'm a very crazy person. In and around my teens, I started playing guitar and got into bands in the small Mennonite town I lived in, which is Steinbach, and I wanted to pursue music more thoroughly, so I ended up moving to Winnipeg, and some friends from out of town had moved to Winnipeg as well, and they said, hey, let's start a band, and that band was the first Winnipeg band I was in. It was called Buick 6, not to be confused with the more well-known Buick 6 now, and I was in that band actually with Julie Penner, who all propaganda fans would probably know that she's partnered with Jason Tate. And so that was sort of my first Winnipeg band experience. Julie actually, this is kind of funny. I gave Julie a tape of my songs back when Buick 6 started, seeing like what songs that we might want to play. And I remember her saying to me, oh, I really like some of these songs. Some of them kind of sound like Green Day. And I'm like, who's Green Day? And she's like, oh, they're this band. They played the Albert. They're from California. Really good band. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's kind of cool. And so a while later, I saw one of their tapes at a used record store, and I was like, well, I should give this a listen and see what it's like. And so I started listening to it, and I'm like, I write way better songs than these guys. Needless to say, that did not pan out exactly as it might have.
So what year are we talking here with Buick 6?
1992, 93. So just before Dookie came out. So I listened to like the one with the really long title that I always forget every word of it, 1039 Slappy Hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And I liked songs on there, but I felt I was a better writer.
Nice. Okay, so from Buick 6, where do you go next?
Well, Buick 6, I always wanted to pursue my own. Oh man, it sounds so pretentious. Always wanted to pursue doing my own songs more thoroughly. So I ended up forming a band called Cheerleader, which included one of my Buick 6 band members and second cousin, a guy named Matt Koop, and two other guys. One was a guy named Chris Peters, who's also from the Steinbach area, and Dan McCafferty, not Dan McCafferty of Nazareth, but an entirely different Dan McCafferty. And yeah, Cheerleader lasted from about 94 to 96, and we were involved with a local label called Endearing. And in and around that time, in Winnipeg, and it's probably the same in all scenes, you had to be in more than one band. So I was like in 5 bands at one time, and at one point. I think in '95 I was in like 5 bands, including the Bonaduces, which most Winnipeg people that's what they know me best for, as
Yeah.
the guy who jumps up and down in the Bonaduces. And anyway, so Cheerleader lasted until '96, early '96. Our label that we were working with, Endearing, had tried booking a tour, and it became a real sore spot for some members of the band because uh, they were like, "We're not going to get any money off this. Not going to make like it's not going to really build our rep." And so half the band quit on me, and I wanted to form a new band. And I had been a fan of John's since I'd heard Slips and Tangles, his
Mm.
set. Um, I was like just blown away, and I was like, man, that's what I got to do. I got to like do a all acoustic tape at some point, and maybe people will care about it. That was not the case. And the funny part is, I'm not exactly sure how John and I connected. You know what? No, I kind of do. At that time, I Spy and members of I Spy and Propaganda were living in the same house, and I became a huge I Spy fan, like right off the hop. Especially the song "Remain," which was on the split they did, just blew my mind. Absolutely loved it. So I got to know the guys and really connected, especially well with pretty much everyone. With Todd. Todd really scared me back then. He totally, he was so like intense. And I remember sitting in his bedroom listening to Born Against records and just being like super like, man, this guy, he must just hate my guts. Oh my goodness. Really cool that he's letting me listen to this Born Against, but he's got it. Man, he just does not like me. But anyway, so I connected with James, and I loved just loved I Spy, loved his drumming, and John, and I think John may have lived in the house as well at that time. Yeah, I think he did, and we just sort of connected and chatted a bit. Like, I mean, he was a pretty reserved kind of guy, and then I don't know how it came about, but we started getting together sometimes and just playing our songs for each other, like with acoustic guitars. And so at a certain point after Cheerleader folded, I was like, man, I would love to form a band with John and have like a two-songwriter kind of band, like a
Hmm.
Beatles or Husker Du kind of thing. Except in this case, if it's the Beatles, John would have been John, Paul, and George, and I would have been a really prolific Peter Tork. So, but yeah, and I'm still kind of amazed that I was able to convince both James and John to get together with me. But we got it together. It was and I was floored.
Was James still in I Spy and was John still in Propagandy in the original formation, or had both of those separations and breakups happened by that time?
No, I Spy was definitely he. Now, okay, I think I Spy was still going. I think,
Okay.
but I'm a little fuzzy on that right now. I know John was still in Propagandy, but both of those bands, I think, had sort of reached an end point, or were very close to reaching an end point with their respective memberships of John and James.
Hmm.
I don't know that we talked about it too much at that point. Once again, John was pretty reserved. He was a man of few words, a young man of few words, and so I was always like I said, I was amazed that he wanted to do this, but I was always never sure if he was like, like I said, I wanted a two-songwriter band, but I didn't know how to broach the subject. I think I might have said like, "Hey, do you want to bring some songs to practice?" And he was just sort of, like sort of smile or whatever, and and we just start going through the tunes. But yeah, so it was. I know that shortly, and this is kind of the kind of jumping ahead to the end, as it were. The band kind of came to an end when James was going to move. I think it was uh, down to. See, I can't remember which country it was now, so I'm a little embarrassed by that. But I think it might have been Brazil. He moved down south, and once again, this is with a fog of 30-ish years, and I haven't really gone into depth, but I'm pretty sure he went down. Went down to either Central or South America for a while, and so that kind of caused the collapse of the band. And I decided to reform Cheerleader at that point, which was really didn't pan out. I think we practiced like 100 times, and I don't even know if we played a show.
Hmm. Okay, so are we talking for kicker? I mean, not for kicker, for dud. Did it start in 95 or did it start in 96?
It started in '96 because
Okay.
Cheerleader put out our second and final 7 inch on Endearing in early to mid '96. At some point after that, yeah, I think we broke up. We actually broke up before the 7 inch came out, and then because we didn't have it for a tour, and the tour didn't happen. And then I formed Dud with John and James shortly thereafter because I couldn't be without a band. I had to have a band the whole time, and then yeah, and then at some point while we were rehearsing, I think my parents decided to give each my brothers and I each $1,000. Like they sort of said, at some point we're going to pass away, and then whatever inheritance, we'd like you to have some money now, so that you can do something fun with it. And Cheerleader had broken up, and I would have totally used that to make a Cheerleader recording. So Dud had just started, and I'm like, okay, then we're going to record. And with that recording, the plan was for Endearing, the label that had put out the Cheerleader 7 inch and done a bunch of other stuff. Bonaduces CD eventually came out on that label. They wanted to put out a split with Dud on one side and some acoustic songs from John on the other. So
Hmm.
that was sort of like the plan for some of these recordings.
Okay, cool. Okay, so did I know that there were some shows that occurred? Did you
Yeah.
play shows before recording, or did you just rehearse and then record and then start playing shows?
Our, I think it might have been our third rehearsal was a show.
Hmm.
Maybe even our second rehearsal was a show. It was a basement show at the because I think I'm trying to remember. I think at that time, wherever, I'm not sure if it was where James was living or where I Spy was practicing, but it was a basement. And all of a sudden, this band, Your Mother, were coming through town. And I think the guys from I Spy knew them somewhat from touring. And so Your Mother were coming to town. They wanted to play a show, so we decided, like, well, we'll be the opening act. And some of the guys from Your Mother went on to What Happens Next. And then we also played. And what was really funny is there was another band on the bill that was basically these like young, like I'd consider them kids now, like they're in their late teens, and they were on tour with their parents driving them around in a minivan, and
Nice.
which now as a dad, I'm like, that's awesome. But at
Yeah,
the time, we're all like, snicker, snicker, snicker. That's very funny, not very punk rock. Oh, so pretentious. Once again, so pretentious.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think that Todd, I was messaging a little bit with Todd the other day about this band. I was like, oh, yeah, the James Dud recordings are going to come out. And he was like, I was just talking to James today. That's great. He's like, I saw them a couple times. So I think that Todd was probably at the show that you guys did in the basement where I Spy was playing.
It's entirely possible. We did the only two shows that I can really remember, and I honestly do not remember how many shows we played. The only two I can remember off the top of my head are the basement show, and then we played the Albert at some point, and there were some Nazi skinheads there, and I
Mm.
remember James making fun of them, like from the stage, like before we even. I don't know if it was before our set or yeah, I think it was just before our set. He totally made fun of them, and I was like, man, that is some balls. That is some ovaries. That was exceedingly impressive, man. But yeah, those are the only two shows I remember, and I do remember, like at some point, like as much as I was afraid of Todd, Todd got friendlier to me, and I always really appreciated that because to me he was, such a dedicated guy and so intense with his beliefs and standing up for them, and just the fact that he would sort of allow me into his circle, I was really impressed by that. Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Very
continue.
cool. Very cool. Okay, so there is a recording.
Yes.
People aware of this podcast now will have seen that I have relentlessly been sharing the news of this release.
And I
Um
really appreciate that, Megan. I appreciate that so much, Greg. Like, thank you.
oh, you're welcome. No problem. We just got to get some attention on this because this is you know, we focus mostly on propaganda here. So this is a post propaganda, pre Weaker Thans, interim period John K. Sampson album that
It's
people didn't even know existed.
it's kind of funny because I knew when we first started discussing making this happen and having this come out, I was like, this one's for the nerds. This
Yeah.
is 100% like, it'd be nice if people were like, "Oh, I'm excited to hear the songs, that you wrote or whatever." But I know that this is specifically for a very niche, like, "Oh, this is exactly between the two." And I know that because I'm that nerd. Like,
Yes.
I'm that guy that is obsessed about a band or whatever, and just like, "Oh, did you hear about blah blah blah? Oh, I totally got to hear that because it's this exact point in their trajectory between when the synthesizers took over and the bass player started performing with a whip on stage,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
whatever kind
Like
of thing."
we love the other stuff, right? We've talked
Oh,
tons about Beeves bands. We've talked about
oh,
Sulin's bands. We've
yep.
talked about we're gonna make an episode on the Altars of Nocturnal Armageddon black metal EP that Chris made in 1989. Like we just haven't
That's
gotten to it
amazing.
yet. But like we love the side bands and stuff. It's just part of the story, right? And if you don't talk about this release, you're missing part of the story. So that's just kind of why I see this to be so important. When did the recording happen? Is this like summer of 96? Fall
No, actually,
96?
it's handy dandy because I had forgotten, but right on the actual ADATs, it says November '96. So it was right
Okay.
in the middle of a, positively balmy, Winnipeg winter, I'm sure. We loaded all of our stuff into Mark the Butcher's house, and I think Mark the Butcher would have gotten more than a few mentions. And John Sutton got behind the board. He accidentally erased the first symbol at the beginning of "I Get What I Deserve," which is for whatever reason stuck in my brain. Um, I'm gonna be blunt about this. I made a terrible error in thinking I could, at that point in my career, thinking that I could sing 7 songs in a row and be able to pull it off. I remember the rough mix we had of it. I remember bringing it home to my 2 roommates and playing it for them, and both of them getting kind of this like down, crestfallen look on their faces, and going, "Yeah, man, your singing's not very good on this." And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that, like, I mean, endearing, like, sort of the release of the split 7-inch falling apart is one of the big reasons it didn't come out. The fact that James was moving away was one of the big reasons that it didn't come out. But I think also sort of being informed that my performance was subpar made me kind of like, oh, maybe I should, maybe the world doesn't really need to hear this.
See, I don't have the issue with your vocals. I mean, I've listened to the EP several times at this point, and I don't have that issue with your vocals. Like, do you think that now looking back on it with like 30 years of hindsight, that it was kind of like just something that got like stuck in your head, like as like a self-conscious sort of thing? Like, if these two people think that, then everybody's going to think that.
I think there's a degree of, um, and I don't know how this is for every single vocalist or instrumentalist or whatever, but I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with musicians, and a lot of us, and I especially feel this way. Like, you hear your voice, and sometimes you're like, yeah, that worked out good. Yeah, that's. And then other times you're like, I should never have ever even picked up a musical instrument. I should have never opened my mouth. Like, it's a, I don't know. And I mean, maybe it's just a sign of, the myriad of mental health issues that all of us as artists and creatives have. And part of the reason that we are artists and creative because of those variety of mental health issues, be no matter how severe or not severe they are. But it is one of those things where I listen to it now, and yes, I'm much happier with it now. In part because also I was listening to a rough mix made in 1996 versus a finished final, remix and remaster in 2026. But yeah, I'm always critical of my voice. I hear it, and sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that worked out good. But other times I'm just sort of like, I accept it. Like, that's how it's just sort of like, that's how it is. It's not going to get better. there's nothing else I can do.
So the recording was in a house, right? It was Barney's
Yeah,
house.
Mark the Butcher.
Okay.
Uh, Mark the Butcher. Oh man, I totally forgot his last name. Mark. He's the sound guy for Propaganda, the touring
Yeah.
sound guy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Park Theater.
so
And he
there
worked
we
at
go.
Park Theater for years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. So,
so okay, so it was in his house. John
mhm.
Sutton, from who would go on to be in the Weaker Thans, recorded it. What else do you remember about? Do you remember anything about like gear or any other like details that stand out?
I think at that point I was using a Marshall, like a Marshall amp that was like it wasn't like a head with a cab, like it was an all-in-one. I can't tell you the name because I'm the opposite of a gearhead. Like I always the guitar I currently use, I always forget what name brand it is. I'm like that bad. I was using an Epiphone hollow body that I fairly recently picked up. For a number of years, I had just been using an acoustic guitar with a Dean Markley pickup shoved into it, playing in punk and indie rock bands. I do not. There's no good reason why I should have done that for as long as I did, but I continued it for a long time. I think it was money. I think I didn't have
Budget
enough.
friendly, of course.
Exactly. I didn't have the money to get an electric until a friend sold me that excuse me the Epiphone for like $400, and so then that became my guitar. So I used that. John, I think, was using still the sort of red bass covered with stickers that he used in Propaganda. I don't know what kit. I'm assuming it was just James's standard kit that he used for I Spy. Sutton had a real thing about getting snare sounds, so I think he probably borrowed two or three snares to try out for the recording, which was done in 2 days. Like all the music was done in one day, and all the singing was done on a second day, if I remember correctly, because that was the budget that we had. And the one thing, and you could go either way about this. I kind of wish now I had chosen four songs and concentrated on those four instead of saying, nope, we're going to do like the whole set. I feel like the qualities that bothered me about it for all those years would have been kind of moot if I'd actually just like, well, buckle down and do these four and do them really good instead of trying to get everything on tape just because I hadn't been able to get everything on tape before. So,
Okay, cool. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think of what to talk about next. So these things, so you get the tapes, right? You've got these like ADAT, like on like VHS or something, Paul. Like
yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen, I've
exactly.
seen the pictures
VHS
for 'em.
tape.
How in the world do tracks get stored on VHS tapes? I've never seen that done before.
Technology, uh, tech wise, I'm even worse than I am on gear. Like
So
it was,
John gave you the VHS tapes?
yeah. He gave me like at some. I mean, because I had like they're the master tapes. So at
Okay.
some point, Sutton handed over the master tapes to me, and probably a DAT mix of it, maybe even just a cassette mix. Because I think my brother-in-law put the cassette mix onto a CDR for me at one point. And he ran a little label out of Calgary, and he was at one point like, yeah, I wouldn't mind releasing this, and I'm like, I don't think, you know, I don't think John Sampson Fellows would be too keen on that at this point. And also the mix was bad, and yeah, like over the years, I always sort of wanted it to come out because I knew the nerds would want, I knew the nerds would want it,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, it just never seemed like the right place or the right time. And I mean, especially with John with Samson Fellows really with the Weaker Thans being such a big thing at one point, it sort of felt like, well, I don't know if it's a good idea. Like, am I just gonna be coattail riding?
Mm.
It's just gonna be like some sort of like, hey, look at me. I once played with him, and that was one of the things about making it a benefit release at this point. I was sort of like, okay, we can do this. The people that are going to care about it will get it into their hands, and it won't be like, yeah, I'm making my money, I'm getting my whatever. out of this. It's like, no, money's going somewhere else,
Yeah.
and I'll continue doing my thing and whatever. Like, there's not going to be some sort of podcast about Mike Koop someday,
Okay. So did the tapes just like, did you just like carefully move them with you for the last 29 years until
Yeah,
okay, so you just kind of like had them stored and anytime you would
I
move, you would make sure those tapes were safe and just kind of go to the next place.
I have a box full of like cassette demos and CDs and CDRs. Like just I think I also have I think I have some other ADATs if I remember. But yeah,
I
they were
think
just sitting in the
I think
box.
there's like an unreleased Bonaduces as well. I think Paul was talking to me like, "Oh yeah, there's more Bonaducci stuff too."
Oh yeah, that actually at one point. Oh, let's see if I can go into detail without being super dull, or just like saying names that nobody knows or cares about. But anyway, Doug at one point when he was in the Paperbacks, his band after the Bonaduces, the bass player was really good friends with this guy named Remy Shand, who briefly had a he sort of blew up in the Canadian music scene briefly, and I think through Remy there was another guy in Quebec who I think Philippe, who was like, "Oh yeah, I'll remix or remaster or I'll fix up the Bonaducci's recordings." And so I think it's through Remy. It's a little once again, it's a little. I'm not sure. The time and tide has taken away memories, and so Doug shipped them out to him to get like remixed and remastered. And I remember him telling us that he'd done this at one point, like during one of our periodic reunions, and then just we never heard about it. And then yeah, the gentleman who has the tapes actually reached out to me at one point and says, "Hey, I have these," and I'm like, "Oh, that's super cool." And I tried to connect him with Doug in some way to make it happen that they came back, but it just didn't. And now with Paul being in the picture, I think Paul really sort of stepped up, and I think I'm hoping that the ADATs come back and we're able to get like a proper remix of K is for Catherine for sure.
Hmm.
Second album, Democracy of Sleep, was recorded on 2-inch tape, so yeah, the ADATs are just all the like they're from like 96, 97, somewhere in there.
Well, I think that Paul will most likely hear this, and I just want to say for the record that Paul is relentless, and
Oh
that
yeah.
if this goes down, like if he gets those tapes, like there will be no rest. So kudos to you, Paul, if you hear this. Okay,
Oh, for
so
sure. Thank
this
you,
is
Paul, for all the work.
for
Thank
real,
you.
and that brings us to this to that part of the story. Okay,
Okay.
um, these tapes sit with you for 29 years. I'm coming up to Winnipeg in October of 2025 for a book release show at Public Domain.
And thank you
I
so much once again for having me at that show. Thank you so, so much.
So this is insane to me because Paul and I were just standing in the club chatting. You roll in with your guitar, and within 5 minutes, we're talking about all this stuff like that you talk about with people that you feel like you've known your whole life but have just met. And then you were like, "Oh yeah," and then I was in this band with John Sampson and James Ash from I Spy, and I have the tapes at my house and never been remixed and mastered. And Paul is like, who's an audio engineer.
Yeah.
You got that conversation strikes up, and then you leave. You go to your house, you get the tapes, and you come back, and you were back within 15 minutes, and you hand these tapes to Paul. And I was just like, what the hell just happened, bro? And
You
so
are witnessing history.
seriously. So tell me about the last 7 months between October when you handed over the tapes to Paul at Public Domain, which I witnessed. I was there. I was there. And then up to now when we're on the precipice of this release. What has the last 6, 7 months been like for you?
Well, the thing is, like, I mean, I didn't pre-plan it in some crazy way, like I'm plotting this thing. But I was like, I bet you Greg would love to hear about this little niche thing that happened because it is propaganda adjacent. And I know at one point earlier on when we connected on Instagram, you'd asked me about like, oh, do you want to be on the podcast sometime? And I was like, that'd be cool, except like what angle would
There
there
has
be?
to be
And
a
then I
reason.
also yeah, like yeah, I like propaganda and I knew the guys and got along with them and whatever. But then I was also like, well, there is the dud thing. And I thought, well, I'll bring it up there and see what happens. And the thing is, I wasn't expecting Paul to be like, oh yeah, I can do that, but I was sort of like, they've been sitting there for 30 years. Now's the time then. If somebody's like up for making this happen, like for sure. And this just seems like, I mean, it sounds sort of dumb, but I kind of knew that would be something that would excite you, that it existed. And that's got to be extra exciting that you actually see this little bit of, weirdness happen, like
Yeah.
where, oh, this is going to get, like, now that there's actually a door open to this occurring, well, of course I'm going to just make it happen. Like, I live close enough by, I can just dig these out and make it happen. Rather have it happen than just have them keep collecting dust. Like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it was crazy to watch it happen. And then, so Paul goes to his house with these tapes. He finds a way to get Lloyd to digitize it so that he can get the tracks off of these VHS ADATs. And then he puts together a random mix, sends it to you. And I don't think he was really expecting it to go farther than just an initial quick, fun goof off mix that he didn't really put a lot of effort into. But then it just kind of kept going from there.
Well, one of the things was, once again, I like don't want to, like, with Samson Fellows, I didn't want to be messing around, dicking around with his name.
Yeah.
Like, he has a name and a reputation and a like, he's, so I
He's
didn't
got a
want to mess.
legacy.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't want to mess with that. So initially I was like, you know what? I'll pass this to a few friends. Like, I knew you'd be excited to hear it. My brother-in-law Mike would be excited to hear it. And I figured there'd probably be a few other people that might be excited, but whatever. I don't know at what point I actually brought it up with John, but at some point I brought it up with him. Maybe somebody else even brought it up. Maybe you brought it up with him. I don't
It
remember for
wasn't
sure.
me. No, no, no. I try to leave him alone as much as possible.
Which is fair, which is totally fair. And at some point I brought it up, and I think I said, like, hey, would you be at all okay with us coming out? And I think I, in fact, may have sent it to him and James at the same time. I think via Instagram. I'd started following John, and I'd been following James for a little while, and I was like, hey, this happened. I'm gonna send it to you guys, and they were both like, yeah, this is cool. And then I think I just sort of said, hey, if we put this out as some sort of benefit thing, would you guys be cool with that? Would that be okay? And yeah, and they both said, yeah. Like, no, that sounds like a reasonable thing to ask. And so yeah, and then at that point, it just sort of, like, the problem is I've always been terrible at the business part of the music business.
Hmm.
Like, I feel pretty good about my ability to write songs. I can be quite entertaining on stage. Once again, my vocals, I'm back and forth about. But the one thing I don't know is business. I'm just crappy with business, and so very often I'll just push it into somebody else's hands and say, "You do it," or it's like, "Oh, it's a benefit for something else. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just do that," because then I don't have to worry about trying to figure out money and crap like that I don't understand, and I can't make it work. So rather just do a benefit, and it's out there, and if somebody cares, great, and if nobody cares, whatever. I got my music out, and whatever.
I think Paul did 4 mixes, I think he said. Were you part of the journey of reviewing all the mixes as they were coming through?
Well, he'd always send them to me, and I'd listen to them, and and I could hear some differences. Like, I mean, I could definitely hear differences over the original mix from what Paul was doing. Like, I mean, it was like night and day, versus a, like I said, like a rough mix on a cassette tape to like a finished, final, polished mix. I think I made exactly one suggestion about one vocal line in one song. And I think other than that, and I know John suggested one arrangement thing for with his bass playing. And I think other than that, it's really just Paul polishing it and finding what was there and bringing it out and like really doing an excellent job of making what was there shine as brilliantly as he possibly could.
I'm in a group text with Paul and Matt Milkowski, who wound up doing the cover artwork for it, and the just watching.
Great job, Matt. Great job.
Yeah, yeah, Matt's amazing. And we'll get there in a second. But so but watching them talk about what Paul was doing to the release, when I had no technical understanding of what they said. So the big like joke in our group text is like, right, Greg? Because like just making sure that like I'm like okay with what they're talking about. It's very good. But watching the amount of care that went into it to these 30-year-old tapes that, it's not like some kind of major label album. It's like a archival thing that was dug up out of a box that was essentially lost to history. Is really amazing to see how much work went into it. So I'm so glad you guys all stuck with it over the last 7 months and that everybody was on board with the release because it's very cool. Um, Comments on the artwork creation side of it?
Well, I mean that was the thing. Um, Paul just sort of said, "Hey, I have this guy who does artwork for me, blah blah blah, and would you be cool with him making something happen?" And I was like, "Yeah, send us some examples of his work." And so he roughed out like I think maybe 4 or 5 different ideas, and each was good in their own way. But definitely the artwork we went with, like it just something about it immediately grabbed me, like the stretched out skull. And I was sort of like I kept coming back to it and just going, it is kind of the best of the bunch. And then the funniest part was I was like, oh, maybe it needs like I made like a little suggestion, and so then Matt sent another like 8 versions with different colors and stuff like that. And we're looking at them all, and it's like, no, actually, the original version of this one is the best one, so we'll just go with that. And I even brought it at Bonaduces practice. I brought it out and showed it to the guys and said like, which one do you think? And they were all pretty much unanimous. Like, yeah, no, that's the one. That's the one to go for.
Man, that is so cool. I love Matt. Matt has collaborated with this podcast many, many, many times. He's probably done 10 or 12 cover songs that he performed for the podcast. He's on the recent Let's Talk More Rock 30th anniversary episode 6 times performing.
Wow.
So Matt is extremely prolific in the arts and musical spaces. So
Again, way to go, Matt.
yeah.
Jeez.
Heck yeah, big time. What are you most proud of on the release? Do you have any favorite tunes that really stand out to you that pass the test of time, that make you really feel proud of yourself as a composer and a songwriter all these years later?
I mean, that's the thing. This is kind of a weird thing. I have continued dragging those songs around with me for 30 years. My band in Calgary, Meds, has re recorded What I Say May Not Go and Distraction. My band in Winnipeg, the Leftists, has re recorded Please Don't and Walk Away. And
Hmm.
none of them have been released yet. They're all sitting. But I've been dragging like those 4 songs are very special to me because I've dragged them around for 30 years and felt really good about them and been trying to get them ever since that fateful day in 96 when I played it to my roommates, trying to get them right since then. Weirdly enough, though, I think the song for me that'll kind of stand out in a weird way is Wasted,
Hmm.
just because I never have touched that song again. I tried rewriting the lyrics at one point. Like, that's the thing. There's a few lyrics on this release where I fixed them over the years so that I feel better about them. So hearing the incorrect lyrics these days is a little bit like, ah, man, I wish I'd sung that different lyric already at that point. But whatever. But Wasted, I've never touched since then, and I feel it's a good song. Like, is
Yeah.
it a masterpiece or whatever? Like I said, really prolific Peter Tork, and I am a Peter Tork fan. Just in case any Tork heads are out there and they're like, and for anybody who doesn't know, Peter Tork was the bass player in the Monkees. Anyway, but yeah, something about hearing Wasted again, hearing it like remixed, remastered, everything brought out, especially with John's. See, that's another thing. Hearing John's bass solo on that, and just hearing his background vocals and harmonies that he brought to the mix, is all really cool. Hearing James's I Spy drum style
Yeah.
brought to power pop is a really fascinating thing. Because, like, I mean, his style, like, he was animalistic. Like,
Yeah.
watching him play with I Spy, they were just so rabid. But they were such
Yeah.
nice guys. Like, they're just this rabid group of nice guys.
That's
That's a
always how it
weird
goes.
statement.
Yeah, that's always how it goes. So,
By the way, nice guys in the good sense, not nice guys in the whatever. Anyway, we won't bother with that.
so Wasted and Walk Away and Doubtful Are those the three songs that there are no other versions in any other bands besides Dud?
No, Wasted, Humanity, which I'm mildly embarrassed about. Like, I mean, it's not terrible, but I'm a little bit like, it was my one real attempt at, I'm gonna write a pop punk song. Like, this is gonna be a
Hmm.
pop punk song, and it's gonna have something to say. And looking back on it with 30 years time, it's a little bit like, I don't know about that one. But Doubtful, which I retitled it at one point, I Get What I Deserve, and it's going to be titled I Get What I Deserve on the reissue.
Oh,
That
okay.
I re-recorded with a band called The Waterworks back in 2013.
Okay.
Uh, so that one is on YouTube. I mean, whatever. Nobody has to look it up if they don't want. But yeah, that one did get re-recorded, but has never, like, its release is on YouTube. That's it.
Sweet. So any plans for the release? Like, what do you want listeners to know about this release? Are there like any future ideas or anything like that? Or what's going on with this particular release that people should know?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is that the money is going directly to Palestine,
Hmm.
and so we're trying. I mean, it feels like a snowflake in the desert, like, what pittance we're going to be able to send out to just an absolute, to try and support people that are literally being genocided.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, that to me is important. That to me is, if people bypass us and just send money to the charity, whose name, of course, I've forgotten right at this moment because I'm an idiot. But yeah, that's very important to me. As far as music with Dud goes, there's not going to be a reunion show. Obviously, James lives in BC and John has retired. Like, he'll do little things here and there, but I'm not gonna, like, come on, John, let's play a gig. No, it's like, yeah, it's basically going to be what it is. If people hear it and like if people actually enjoy the music and they want to hear more music like that, yeah, I have a bunch of different bands that do the same thing. You can find me fairly easily. I'm always around, usually at record stores.
Sweet.
But if nobody really cares, other than it's like this historical thing, that's fine too. You know, I mean, you make music because you want to make music for, whatever reasons, because you want to be heard, because you think you have something worth sharing, but you don't get to decide whether or not people actually care about it or notice it or whatever. So you just do what you do. If people care and notice, awesome. If they don't, you've done what you wanted to do.
The charity that you all have chosen, I'm looking at the website right now. It's
Yes,
IslamicReliefCanada.org.
Islamic Relief Canada. I am very sorry that I forgot the name. I should
Don't
have
worry about it.
had this in front of me. That's kind
Yeah.
of embarrassing. My,
No,
my
it's all
apologies.
good. Don't no, think nothing of it. It's all good. It's all good. I got it here listed up for everybody. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I know because I know I shouldn't ask, but is there any plans? There's a possibility that there could ever be like a 10-inch or a 7-inch or a cassette tape or anything like that, or a CD. You're a big CD proponent. I've got a
I am a
couple of
big
your
Snoop
CDs
guy.
right here,
That's true.
actually.
Man, you whip those things out. That's so. That warms the cockles of my heart that you whip those two
They're
out.
right
They
here. I
fun.
got my kicker, the kicker, first word, last place, and I also have Mike Coop's Multitude of Sins.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's, thank you
So,
so much for whipping those.
oh, you're welcome.
But okay, what was the
The physical,
question again?
physical, physical
Oh, physical
release.
release. Let me put it to you this way: I am more than willing. I am totally, like, I would love for somebody to put this out physically,
Hmm.
but I'm going to be blunt. They would have to eat the costs. If you're going to put this out physically, then the money goes to the charity. Like, I don't want money. The money goes to them. And, like, okay, if you want to, like, maybe if you want to make back your costs on putting it out, we can talk about that. But I don't want to get a bill in the mail. I don't want you to be, like, making money off of this. Not that people necessarily make money, but yeah, if somebody wants to put out a physical copy, sure, let's talk. and we can make it happen. I'm not going to do it. I can't. I got a few other releases I got to try and finance in some way, and do want to make physical copies of it as well. I mean, that's the thing. I'd love to have a 10-inch. I'd love to have a double 7-inch or a CD, especially a CD. I'd love to have that come out, but I can't spread myself that thin as a single dad, and with a couple of other bands whose releases I want to try and have released physically, like if somebody else wants to put it out, I'm all ears. I'm all ears.
Cool. All right. Well, Mike Koop, congratulations on the release of May Not Go, Unrealized Recordings from 1996 by Dud, featuring you on vocals and guitar, John Samson Fellows on bass and backing vocals, and James Ash on drums. What a stellar little release, and I appreciate getting the full story from you. Do you have any other thoughts or things you may have missed that you definitely want to put on the recording for people to hear about this particular release?
Um, I think that's probably good enough. I mean, whatever. Later today, tomorrow, a week from now, I'll all of a sudden go, "Oh, I should have said this," or "Oh, probably shouldn't have said that."
Well,
But
hey, you can say it on Witch Police Radio, because I'm sure that Sam Thompson is coming for you soon.
oh yeah, for sure. Always great talking with Sam. Always fantastic being on Witch Police.
Awesome. Well, Mike Koop, thank you so much for joining me on Unscripted Moments. I'm so glad that we finally had a reason to do a standalone episode. Like you said earlier, like, of course, if you want to come on the podcast, of course, but there has to be a good reason. And we waited 6 years, but the right reason finally arrived. So thank you so much for being a pal and for hanging out and telling me all about this. I loved hanging.
Thank you so much, Greg. Like, really, really appreciate this. And thank you for being so enthusiastic and professional and just being an excellent guy all the way around. Bravo.
It's my pleasure. Right back at you.
Thanks, man.